745 Newstalk 1280 KIT. It is the morning news, and our political candidates forum continues as we talk about the folks that want to represent us in Olympia. 14th District, position number 2. Position number 2 is the incumbent is Gina Mosrucker. You knew her as Gina McCabe here until just recently. A couple of folks running in that race against her. And Liz Hallock is one of them. We've talked with Liz on the phone before, but now she's in person, and the spotlight is on. It's heating up in the room. The grilling's about to begin. No, nothing quite like that. But I got a feeling she could handle it. So, Liz, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I've been up with my daughter since pretty early, so I'm awake right now.
All right, good. Not so sure we can say that for about Richard and myself, but we're here and we're plugging on. This is an opportunity for the community to get to know you. We ask a few questions for you to just kind of tell us about yourself. So question one, we now know you have a daughter. Tell us a little bit about your job, what you do, who you are, that sort of thing, your family.
Sure. Married, 2 kids. Sorry, I'm a little raspy. Excuse me.
Can we get you some water, by the way?
I got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Married, 2 kids. One's starting the public school system this fall. Is very exciting for kindergarten.
Sure.
And I've got a littler one. And my background is attorney by trade. I'm a business owner, downtown Yakima business owner, and I am a Democrat.
All right. Full disclosure, because you made no bones about this before. Your business is?
Sweet Relief Cannabis Express is the #1. I'll do a little plug.
There you go.
Cannabis shop in Yakima County, and the only medically endorsed store in the city of Yakima.
How does one get medically endorsed? I mean,
we have to do a little bit of extra paperwork. Excuse me. We have to. I'm a certified medical consultant with the Department of Health. Okay. Once again, we can't prescribe. We're not doctors, obviously.
But I mean, you've got a background that's recognized by state agencies as different from what everybody else is able to bring to the party.
Exactly.
Right?
And the products are different. They're differently tested. I was reading, some of the candidates for county commissioner were talking about, well, there's a place for medical marijuana. People should grow it in the county and sell it. And I'm like, whoa, that is a felony in Washington. So everything's regulated by the state of Washington now. You have to have a license to grow commercially.
Exactly. All right. So that's the bit. You still practice law?
I do. You've probably seen I sued the county.
I did see that.
Yeah, my big thing is open government. That's one of the reasons I got into this race, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of the legislators, Democrats and Republicans, voted to exempt themselves from the Public Records Act, and they haven't been clear about why they did that. There's been excuses, to protect privacy. Well, the Public Records Act protects privacy. You can withhold a lot of information. Yep. What I think it was really about, if you read their, there was a sexual harassment lawsuit. That was part of it. But what it really was about is the lobbyists, they were going to exempt those communications until July 1st, 2018. So, okay, we'll disclose lobbyist communications, but we got to give them a heads up, right? So that's a big thing for me. I don't take corporate donations. I'm endorsed by things like, PACs like WSLC, the union. But I don't take their money because I want to be able to listen to my constituents. And I think that's a big difference that sets me apart from myself and other opponents in all seats in these races.
Well, okay. I think that there's some real empathy with you on, maybe that's not the right word, some real solidarity with you in terms of transparency. I think that sticks in the craw of a lot of people. And so that being a particular issue of yours, I think will resonate well. Richard?
Yeah, Liz, I think I'm on the side of, I'm not anti-school, certainly not anti-teacher, but I wasn't for McCleary. I wasn't for, in general, spending more money to get better educated kids. And I caught something in the interview you have on record with the Herald about mental health counseling and identifying problems with kids early on to help solve other issues later. School gun violence, perhaps, other homelessness, those kinds of things. So what exactly do you mean by... in the context of what the school should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, and the responsibility of parents. What exactly do you mean by intervening early?
So I don't think I was exactly clear in that interview, but that was actually a bill introduced by the legislature last session it would allow schools to take some of the special education money and put it towards, rather than just learning, book learning, behavioral services like the mental health screening. That was actually proposed. But in McCleary, as I was saying in the Yakima Herald interview, the state is very dictatorial about how individual schools can spend funds, right? And here in Yakima, we have a lot of undocumented immigrants' children, and we bear the burden of that in K through 12 education. And we have a lot of poverty. We are also so let me just clarify what happened in the McCleary decision. It wasn't so much about it was how we were raising funds, right? The state said raising it through levies on the taxpayers wasn't the way that it should be done, right? So a lot of the same amount of money, except that here in rural Clicktack County and Yakima, we're going to be losing money. Because we actually, in some of these schools, like White Sandwich, that's a high property tax base, they were using the levies very well, right? So rural schools, we need to go back to the drawing board. Rural schools need to be able to use levies if they so choose. Here in Yakima, we had a pretty high levy rate. It was like 3.5% or something like that. So it wasn't a great situation. But what happened is and I'm getting a little off the question, but I just wanted to clarify to people what a mess the McCleary fix was for us in LD14, rural and Yakima. So the second part of the school funding issue was paying teachers. And it's based on property tax base. Because folks in Seattle, and I heard your prior guest, and I kind of agree, and I'm a Democrat, we get thrown under the bus a lot out here, right? Folks in Seattle want to pay their teachers more. Well, it costs more in Seattle. But, honestly, and I agree with the Yakima school superintendent, he was in the Herald. He was saying, we need something. We need a perk to attract teachers here to Yakima. Every young person wants to live in Seattle. And I respect teachers. My husband's a teacher, right? I respect, you need to make a good salary in Seattle, but we need teachers here. So because teacher pay is based on property tax rates in their metropolitan district regionalization formula, Yakima schools, their teachers aren't going to have access to pay raises that West Valley schools have. And that is not right, because you're saying to this child in the city of Yakima, you are worth less than some of these kids over in Seattle, and so on and so forth. My issue is that, of course, I have a kid going into school, but my issue is Mason County, there was a second round of McCleary, right, in 2018. Mason County, they went to whoever was in charge. A lot of this was done behind closed doors, right?
Duh.
Yeah. So
There's a transparency thing again.
They went and they lobbied, and Mason County, they were making this argument, well, teachers is just going to go over to, Kitsap County. They got more money for their teachers. We didn't. So that's a big issue. We need to come together. Democrats, it was Democrats voting. Republicans were told, don't vote for this. McCleary is not done, and I strongly disagree with my opponent that we are done funding education. We need to do something because everyone is complaining and we're losing funding, and all the teachers are worried, and there's so much influx. And I know people are saying, oh, just give it a little time. Well, I've seen that happen, right?
Well, business owners in general, business owners work under this model. You do a good job, you get paid more, right?
Right.
But with the school system, for some reason, we have this fixation on being fair. Everybody needs to get paid the same. And I just don't know about that. But every election or every issue that comes up every year, there's always some talk about a new tax, a capital gains tax, a carbon tax, a B&O tax increase. And at the same time, many people are saying the state doesn't have a revenue problem; they have a spending problem. So what's your aim if you were to get elected?
Right.
Are you going to look for places where we can make some savings to pay for some of these things, or are you going to advocate for another tax?
Yeah. Well, let me just take one step back and tell you why I'm a Democrat, because a lot of people say, you're a business owner, you should be a Republican. My parents were Republicans in Pennsylvania. Arlen Specter times a long time ago, right? Things have changed. And that's the problem with this two-party system. It's not clear in both parties exactly what their
Old
platform
definitions
is.
no longer apply, right?
What's that?
Old definitions no longer apply to today's reality.
It's so hard to tell. What are you trying to achieve? What's your goal, right? So personally, I am attracted to the Democratic Party, because there is a wing that is against big money in politics. That's one. But number two, I kind of agree with the Democratic philosophy that government can be a solution to flaws in the free market system, right? It's very easy. I want to do it too. I own a business. I want to say, I don't want to spend money on those staples, whatever. But those are kind of knee-jerk reactionary things. If you're I believe that, that we can fix flaws in the free market system. However, you've got to understand economics. You need to know the science. You need to know the studies. You just can't say on everything, well, I'm not going to pay for that, right? For example, you guys were talking about trade deficits and tariffs and whatnot this morning. That is a campaign issue, right? Because I think it was the National Apple Growers Association just put out an ad, said, Trump, we supported you. Stop this trade war. Let's go back to free markets, right? Because I think you had it on your website, Packer.com. They're selling less apples to Mexico, India, all our trade partners, right?
Definitely.
So if you don't understand what a trade deficit is, if you won't sign a G7 compromise because you don't understand that services have to be included in that, if you don't understand a trade deficit might mean that our economy is booming and it's not always a bad thing, and if you don't understand that tariffs, by pretty much every economist's account, is not the way to fix the trade deficit, right? Then you're going to run yourself into trouble, right? And that's bad for business. All this uncertainty is bad for business. So with regards to, how am I going to deal with these fiscal policies, essentially is what you're saying, is I need to know what's going to be the actual effect of this. Not just what does the Washington state, because every time they do a bill, they're looking into what the fiscal impact is.
Sure.
Not just what their official policy is. What do other economists say? What do the experts say? What do the business owners say? And I'm happy to address, how I feel on carbon tax and how I feel on some of these other tax policies. But I would just say, I want people to know from a general perspective, I think that, even Adam Smith recognized that there are problems in a truly free market system. We don't have a true free market here. I don't know if there's a place in the world where that exists. And of course, I'm a business owner. I get frustrated with administrative agencies. I'm in a highly regulated business, right?
The highest, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really important that whoever we elect understands economics. I'll give you an example of this. Must have been last budget. And prior to that, my Republican opponent said, I promised I wouldn't raise taxes on constituents. So I don't want to collect the sales tax from businesses that market over the internet and sell goods to Washington state residents. Okay. So there's a Supreme Court ruling, a United States Supreme Court ruling that said, hey, Amazon does pay their sales taxes, but they've got all these vendors under them, right? That don't remit sales taxes to us. Well, now U.S. Supreme Court says, hey, we get to collect those. Okay. So my point is, my opponent didn't, she just said, no tax. I said the word tax, no tax. To me, collecting sales tax, and I pay a lot of taxes, so I understand, that you got to pay your taxes. Collecting sales tax is not an additional tax, right? Not paying your sales tax is tax evasion. And out-of-state companies that market to residents in Washington, right? Those are not your constituents. Constituents are the people that live here and have downtown businesses.
Well, let me condense this just a little bit. The bottom line is a default position for conservatives, Republicans, is often, hey, no taxes. If I hear you right, there are times when, and it's what I said when I was on city council, you have to be, if you're going to be a truly effective representative, you can't close the door on any of the tools of government to make fair and responsible decisions preemptively. Each circumstance is its own. Am I putting words in your mouth?
I would say that's generally true, and it's a compromise of what role does government play? So we have Democrats on one side, Republicans on the one side, and we should be coming to some kind of consensus. But when it's based on false information, like a trade deficit is always a bad thing, and tariffs are the way to fix the trade deficit, and a misunderstanding of what a trade deficit is, that's a problem. When it's a misunderstanding of tax evasion and collecting out-of-state sales tax, that's a problem. We can't just have knee-jerk reactions to policy. We need to make good economic policies, and that drives business. And I think business people are very afraid of what's going on right now. And you were talking about, interest rates. Okay. The Federal Reserve has two jobs, right? Stop inflation and create jobs. It's not a government agency. The president doesn't tell the Federal Reserve what to do. Those guys are PhDs.
He may, but they don't listen, right? He's not authorized to have.
It's unusual. Yeah, it's unusual. They're supposed to be independent, right? And I don't approve of everything that the Federal Reserve is and what it does, but those guys are pretty brilliant, and that's their job. And it's not like I'm not going to question them, right? But I want to learn, okay, so why is it that we're at the point where our economy is booming and it might be time to start raising interest rates, right? And scaling back on possible inflation. I want to research that a little bit before I just come out and say, hey, that's bad. You know what I mean?
Sure. Are you running against Trump or you're running against Gina Mosracker? Because you're sounding sort of nationalistic with all of this stuff.
Yeah, nationalistic, like I'm a nationalist?
No, like
or just talking in general?
And national level issues.
Yeah. Right, because it is because of what we are here in Yakima, because of the industries that fuel this valley and the people's jobs here is so highly dependent on a very delicate global economy, right?
Well, understanding it as one thing, being able to impact it as a Eastern Washington legislator is another.
Right. And that's why I've always said in my campaign, we need to diversify our economy here, just in case. And there's a lot of people here that want to do things other than work in the agricultural industry. Now, I disagree. And again, I can support things like, for example, I support DACA on a personal level, right? I'm not going to be a U.S. congressperson. So I don't get to write that law. That's Dan Newhouse's job, right? But, the state of Washington had a bill that passed. A lot of these DACA kids are highly deserving, and they couldn't get federal financial aid, so they couldn't go to college at UW because it's too expensive. And my opponent voted against extending state financial aid to them. Well, that passed, and so those kids can go to college now. Now, with regards to, the jobs issue, we need to diversify our economy here. And I will have an impact, right, as a state representative on that.
One would hope. All right, we're burning through time here, so let's do this.
Because it's fun.
It is. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You certainly have a different bite at this apple than others have. Carbon tax, okay. Yes, no?
Okay, this bill... The initiative?
Yes.
1631, right? Is that right?
I'm not sure the numbers, but...
Okay. This is my problem with a lot of initiatives. We're going to write the rules later. We're going to exempt certain people. This has been thrown around multiple times, and your prior guest, Jay Inslee, has supported it, and he supported all of them, and I'm not sure why he supports this one, because this one is actually less strict than the prior initiative, and a lot of environmentalists say this one will be less effective. Now, just in general, should we basically tax polluters is the question. Well, the argument, right, that's what a carbon tax is. The argument against it was always, that's going to basically cut jobs, right? Because, economic output, right? Pollution is created, right? Well, what they found in California, and I know your prior guys were talking about California, but
start to sort of wince a little bit when you mention that, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they were nice enough to have the radio on, but everybody thought that their program, which was a carbon tax cap and trade program and a tax, was going to lose jobs, and that's not what happened. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with 1631, though, and I've said this to the business community too. business drives Washington. And I think their argument is, hey, why are we doing model legislation for the rest of the state when we really don't have a lot? We don't have the carbon output that California does. We don't have those
Not
big.
even close, right?
Yeah.
We have hydropower. Hello.
Right.
And yet, what are we trying to do to that?
Right.
Not renewable. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, yes or no? Are you on
Not
board with
that
this
initiative.
initiative?
I think
Not
it's a
this
bad
version.
one.
Okay.
Not bad, but you know what I mean. I wouldn't vote for it.
There are other ways or other ones. Okay. So, final question. It's not even a question. It's you're in the elevator with everybody else, and you've got a chance between now and the 6th floor to make your pitch. Why do we vote for Liz Hallock?
Well, first of all, I live here, and I think that we are going to see some changes in the districts because these two representatives for such a massive district I think we're one of the few states that has that left. So I spoke to somebody yesterday, an African-American woman. She said, I want to vote for you, open my ballot, and you aren't on my ballot. She lives 6 blocks away from me, right? So Yakima right now is kind of cut down the middle. And I'm here from Yakima, and some of your other guests are from Yakima. I think it's really important that Yakima have representation because we are a big city with big urban problems. Now, I did practice in Klickitat County. I'm very familiar with that community. But honestly, what happens in, Stevenson, my goodness, so different from walking around on Fair Avenue in Yakima. So, I'm fiscally responsible, mom, business owner. I believe in empowering the people. And I think that is what anybody who gets elected should be all about.
Liz Hallock, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think we could probably do about a 3-hour show
That'd be fun.
on not on any range of topics. But in the event that you survive the primary, we will have another chance to visit at least once or more. So load up and get ready to chat again. And
all right.
Best of good luck to you.
Thank you.
Everybody, the ballots are out now, and August 7th, I think, is the day. So vote accordingly, and maybe we'll have a chance to visit with Ms. Hallock again. Thanks for your time. Best of good luck.
Thank you so much, guys.
You bet. Newstalk 1280 KIT.
This is Yakima Valley's home of the 12.